So today I have a very special guest. It's the mayor of South Miami. His name is Javier Fernandez. And yes, this is the city of pleasant living, and he's one of the key people in making that reality come to life. And I have a very exciting interview because there's a lot of good questions I'm going to ask him. And I'm sure if you know this area, then you probably know some of the questions I'm going to ask. But before we get started, I wanted to introduce Javier. If you can, let the audience know who you are, your background, and all that good stuff.
Yeah, sure. Brian, thanks for having me on. My name is Javier Fernandez. I'm currently the mayor of South Miami. Been serving this role since November of 2022. By training, I'm an attorney in private practice with a specialty in land use and zoning work, and work all across Florida with clients, investors, developers, trying to get project entitlements or trying to assess what they can do with an asset they may be acquiring. I've been in public life on and off as a staff person and as an elected for the last 20 years, in elected office since 2018, where I served 2.5 years in the State House representing District 114, which included South Miami.
So there's one question I get asked all the time from people, and it's
about Sunset Place, right?
It's about
There
Sunset Place. What is going on with Sunset Place, and what is the plan?
Look, the best news I can give you and give every one of your viewers is that for the first time in a long time, the city of South Miami has not been the obstacle to that project advancing. So last November, we finalized a series of zoning regulation revisions for that property, and we had been waiting anxiously for a submittal on their part since that time to tell us what they wanted to do. They've been studying their options. They hired Thomas Heatherwick, who's a renowned designer out of London, to help them come up with a new vision for the property. And my understanding is they just submitted plans last week. I was on vacation, so I haven't had a chance to see them yet, but I'm very excited to see what that prospective vision looks like.
So what is the current vision of your administration of South Miami? Because there's a lot of development happening here, and I'm sure a lot of residents ask you, what is the idea or the goal or the vision you guys have? So where do you see South Miami heading to in the next 5 years?
Yeah, so I'm a dad of a 16-year-old daughter and a 14-year-old son. And as I said when I campaigned, we live in a wonderful community that should have the best amenity suite in Dade County. We're in the center of the county. We've got a rail station. We've got a historic town center, right? A historic scale town center. But it's a place that my children don't want to go to, right? They'd rather go to the Falls. They'd rather, no disrespect to the Falls, Merrick Place, everybody but South Miami. So my vision is to create a town center where my children will want to go, where my wife and I can have a suite of shopping and dining options to enjoy. We live less than 10 blocks from Sunset Drive. And so that's one of the reasons we moved to this area. The good fortune is that we have a historic scale town center, that Main Street, that we want to retain. And we want to let the rest of our town center grow around it. So in my long-term visions for South Miami, what I see is the juxtaposition of the low-scale Main Street with development around it that really embraces the fact that we have a multimodal station, a heavy rail station here in South Miami that should be the focus of growth.
So there's a lot of residents that I've seen in my comments tell me, the bakery center came and went, Sunset Place came and went, and a lot of the residents want to know, how is this new development that's going to happen in Sunset Place, how's that going to bring more economic development to the community? And I guess what is the overall plan of that development to actually bring more business and actually uplift the community even more?
Yeah, what South Miami needs is people living in the town center. We've had too few of them, right? We have wonderful single-family neighborhoods, and the intention of my entire commission is not to touch them or to allow anything to happen that would result in growth encroaching on those neighborhoods. Where we're focused on growing and adding more people is in our town center around the transit station, right? Because that's where the growth should happen. And that's where our existing businesses, our existing restaurants, our existing shops need more customers that can walk to and from those businesses, kind of create the opportunity for commerce on a more robust schedule. Right now, we're a destination that has peaks of activities in the morning, in the midday. Our evenings and weekends are really soft. And that's because we just don't have a native population. And with the shops declining, notwithstanding that still over 1 million people go to the movies, there's just not enough activity or excitement to bring people in. So long term, Sunset Place, we got to get it right. Getting it right for me means having a project that connects with the rest of the community. The way that project was designed in its last iteration, it turns us back on 57th Avenue, really creates a fortress essentially on Sunset Drive, right? And internalizes all the activity. What we want as a city, I think what our commission wants is connectivity. Connectivity to Coral Gables to the east, connectivity to our town center to the south and to the west. And I think the developer understands that will not only work for the benefit of the city, but also for the benefit of the project, because it's got to be an extension of the existing community that is, in all respects, a live, work, and play environment. And so I'm hopeful. What I've heard in terms of our concept is that all those elements will be part of the future of Sunset Place.
Now, there's obviously Miami has been growing so fast for the past couple of years, and there's a major concern around affordability and workforce housing. And how's the city, I guess, curating these plans, these developments that are coming in to ensure that residents who are the lifeblood of this business, who are doing all the heavy lifting, won't get priced out of their own community and they'll be able to afford it. So pretty much what's the overall goal to ensure that those residents that are the blue collar, hardworking individuals, even white collar who live here, they don't get left behind?
Yeah, so, South Miami has had a very progressive attitude towards making sure that there's inclusion in any project that's approved. So historically, we've had a mandated minimum requirement that 10% of all new units built in the city had to be affordable, at least under 120% of AMI, so workforce or affordable. Tallahassee's made that more challenging because those mandates now have to be accompanied with a suite of incentives, right, to offset the burden. Obviously, the Live Local Act has added a new element to that conversation. But that's independent of that. We still, at least with respect to the solicitation around City Hall, which we may talk about, and Sunset Place have required substantial amounts of affordable housing. So the developer at Sunset Place, with the zoning regime that we adopted, is incentivized, if they want more height, to provide affordable and workforce housing, either through direct contributions or preferably building the units on site. And there's a much richer incentive to build on site. With City Hall, we at least set a minimum requirement. I think it was 10%. It may have been 12.5%. I'm not sure, to require that number of units in whatever's built here as part of the redevelopment, and hopefully the replacement facilities for our town hall would also incorporate at least a good amount of affordable and workforce housing.
So many people don't know about this, but City Hall, there is plans to redevelop it and to bring a different style to the government center. If you want to touch a little bit on that,
yeah,
talk about it.
So yeah, we for a long time, the city has been in an obsolete facility. This building is not the best building to work in. It doesn't meet our daily needs today. Our police station in particular is in bad shape. So going back to 2015, there have been efforts by successive mayors and administrations to try to kind of unlock the economic value of the land. Again, this 5 acres that sits across from a train station. It's very prized real estate here in Miami-Dade County. Our goal recently, we started an RFQ that proceeded to an RFP to invite respondents in and give us their best proposals to not only replace our facilities, a city hall, police station. We added in through an interlocal agreement with the county, the library, which we had a reverter provision on. So to kind of remake all those facilities, modernize them so that they still remain the civic heart of South Miami, but also incorporate new uses on the west side of US 1. If you know the character of this half of the city of Pleasant Living's town center, it's very institutional. It's very dormant in the evenings. We wanted to add a new series of retail and residential uses to activate the side of the town center, have some balance across both sides of US 1, and also take advantage of what's going to be an incredibly important amenity, which is the underline, and make that a focal point of South Miami. Hopefully, through the relocation of the existing park space on this campus onto the underline, we can create a destination point on that very important 10-mile linear facility to make South Miami a focal point for future users of the underline as well.
So residents are always talking about property taxes, that they're always getting raised. What are unique ways that the city is thinking about generating more revenue without raising property taxes for the residents? And then for these projects that are coming online, what do people expect? Because there's a lot of concern too that it's being overdeveloped, overbuilt. How's the city checking and balancing that as well?
Yeah, look, I think development's always a bugaboo word politically. Residents are always concerned about traffic, right? And traffic is the kind of the lead concern when people see vertical development. The truth is, we have no choice fiscally but to grow, right? That's the way our system at the state level is set up. So we have to channel growth where it's appropriate. For my money, where that's appropriate is here in this urban center near transit, so we can leverage that multi-billion-dollar investment that was made decades ago to its fullest. And we are a short 7-minute to 10-minute ride from two major employment centers, Brickell, downtown, the Civic Center, via that rail. So we need to leverage this asset to, let people get to other employment centers, leverage the two huge employers that we have here in South Miami, Baptist through South Miami Hospital on our west end, the University of Miami, which is a huge employer here on our east end, and leverage that activity to improve economic conditions here. So, development is going to happen. It's a matter of where we localize it, and the most responsible place for us to localize it and leverage the existing infrastructure, water and sewer, rail, transportation, obviously, is here in the town center. So that's been our focus, our goal. And, as we grow, what we'd like to do is see those future revenues get reinvested back in assets that everyday residents get to enjoy. So, we are changing our charter, hopefully with the support of voters this August, to allow us to borrow money. It's not just to borrow because we want to borrow, but we want to take those future revenues and direct them in investment into physical infrastructure, improve sidewalks for our downtown, streetscapes, rejuvenated parks that will serve our local residents, right? Make sure that we're channeling the future growth, not just to grow the organization, but really invest in modernizing South Miami's public spaces, parks, and also help us deal with a very important issue that's, it will improve water quality in our environment, which is financing septic to sewer conversion, which is not inexpensive.
And that's very important. I think most people don't think about that. When you're building vertically, you need to have the infrastructure below to support it. A question that I've been thinking about. So when Sunset Place gets redeveloped, a lot of residents want to know, how's the tenant curation going to happen? Are you guys going to have like an 11 nightclub that shows up there, or a Blue Martini? How does that get managed to make sure that there's no, you don't get those people that are coming in that are transient, that are not really locals or anything like, you know what I'm saying? No,
totally understand. And I think it's, there's a lot of anxiety in our neighborhoods about hotel uses. We have one hotel here in town. It's not the model hotel, no disrespect to them, but it brings some of that unwanted element to South Miami, generates a lot of police calls. What we want, and I think what the developer desires as well, is there's a real market opportunity to service what is a hugely underserved market in my estimation, which is the University of Miami, both in terms of transient users tied to the university. You've seen, I think, some of the success around the Thesis Hotel, the F&B mix there. Now the office and retail starting to fill in. We're a more mature submarket than that space. And I think what is still missing there is creating a connection with the university where conferences, that could be held, that are not held on campus for a lack of appropriate conference and convening space, could be convened at a hotel at Sunset Place, for example, or whatever it's going to be called in its future. So, those opportunities are real. We're talking about them with the developer. What I think is also true is he's going to build to the market. And if you look at a heat map around South Miami, we are the proverbial hole in the donut, right? Everything to our south, the Southern Gables, Northern Pinecrest, I guess the western part of the Gables, incredibly affluent communities that use this and could view this as their downtown, not the Central Gables, to shop at, to eat at, right? To just, enjoy as an amenity. And so that's really our catchment area that we're focused on drawing from. So I think the retail mix will speak to those consumers because that's really the market opportunity. And then from our perspective, the way we're trying to help curate that is, we're trying to activate the town center in the interim while transitioning with some activities. We started SoMe Second Saturdays. We're looking at taking the PTP dollars on the transit side that we get to use those differently to maybe subsidize people's rides in and out of our town center from that larger catchment area to help our restaurants, whether it's Root and Bone or Mosaico or Pura Vida, weather that transition, because there's going to be a lot of difficulty kind of getting in South Miami when hopefully all the construction that we're anticipating will begin.
Yeah, so you have Avalon Bay, you have Sunset Place, you have all these developments coming online. So, those are thousands of new residents that are coming in here. And a question that I have now, so That's actually very innovative that you said about subsidizing the transit passes, because I've never seen or heard anybody doing that.
No, I think we will hopefully pioneer that, and we have an RFP out. I'm not sure exactly when to get back by way of responses, but certainly it's a model that we've talked about publicly. We want to build on what I think is a great refinement to our system for South Miami in particular that the county's implemented with Metro Connect, expand those hours, but then look at how we can use those dollars as an economic development tool, right? And really bring, consumers from outside South Miami into our town center and give them a reason to come here as opposed to go to the downtown Gables or the Grove, right? Or Merrick Place, which are kind of our immediate competitive sets, maybe Dadeland as well, and give them a reason to think about dining one more time a week, right, at one of our establishments, or shopping at one of our shops that extra time, right? That little incremental set of trips, I think, makes a huge difference for our existing businesses, while we try to add more people to support what we have already.
So how's South Miami improving the zoning process and the permitting process? Because for Sunset Place, there's a lot of references that it was pretty much, they were going up against a hill and, there was no chance for them to get any improvement done. How are you guys improving, streamlining that process?
So look, I think the voters in part took care of some of that problem. You used to require a unanimous vote for changes. It's now been, the threshold has been lowered by a prior charter change. So that's why 4 out of 5 of us can now make a decision to do something, support a project on that scale. So that's one change that's happened. I think culturally, as an organization, what we're trying to do is make the transaction of business in South Miami much more predictable, right? So as we are refining our code, we want to do as much stuff as we can as of right? Let people know what we want, send a message to the marketplace so they can invest here predictably. And when they get here, if they have to do something in front of this council, they know that they're working with a group of people who very clearly are aligned with one direction, one vision, and they can expect a particular result if they're meeting all the criteria in the code. So we're trying to let the rules kind of lead the way, as opposed to, I think what's been some of the past here, which is the whim of one member of the commission really dictated whether something did or did not happen, right? And those rules have hurt our community tremendously. We are probably a decade behind the Grove in terms of some of the new investment that we should be seeing, because Sunset Place was approved for 5 years, and then it was transacted and sold at a loss to the current owner, right? And it's probably going to be another 5 years before my children and I can actually enjoy something physically in that space. Because as you know, Brian, these projects are complicated, they're expensive to finance, and they're hard to execute, and they take time. And so, when I talk to voters, we're working as hard as we can to kind of reshape that space with the help of a private investor, but it's going to be a few years before that vision becomes a reality.
So unlike most attorneys and professionals that are mayors out here, you're very much into the battlefield here in the real estate because of your experience. What is your recommendation to improve that process, to cut it down from 5-6 years to maybe a couple years?
Look, I think, markets are fickle, right? So we can't control that. What I think we can control is how predictable a process can be, right? I think we probably have the best single-family permitting timeframe of any jurisdiction in Miami-Dade County. I'd put us up against anybody. If you want to do a renovation in South Miami of an existing home, you'll get a permit within weeks is an exaggeration. You can get it within a week, frankly. For new home development, we've already refined our process to consolidate it somewhat and make it easier for people to come in. So it's not a year-long process. It's 3 months, right? And then, that's 9 months of construction. Hopefully within a year, that person is in a new home. On the commercial side, it's a little bit more challenging, right? But we're trying in everything we do to reduce the time, because we clearly understand, myself, Commissioner Kaye, Commissioner Corey, who are in the private sector, Commissioner Bonich, who comes out of the private sector, is retired, Commissioner Liebman as well. Everyone here understands that time is money, right? And all the time we waste making ridiculous requests is also costing our taxpayers, right, future revenues that could support needed services and service enhancements. So, I think in everything we do here, it's about creating a sense of urgency and operating in a way that respects the time and money of our residents in terms of how we are stewards financially of the revenues that they entrust in us, and also that we are respectful of the time and money of the people who want to make an investment here, right? So predictability is the key, and it's our guide star. And I think the more predictable we become as a community, the more success we'll have, and the more that success will lift all boats.
The future definitely looks bright here in South Miami. And before we wrap this up, is there anything that you would like to leave the audience with before we go?
No, look, we're excited to be here with you. We're excited about what the future holds for our little town. And if we can ever be of service, my cell phone number is on the city's website. Call, text. Happy to sit down and talk to anyone about any opportunities I'd like to explore here in the city of Pleasant Living.
Thank you, Javier. Appreciate it for your time. And if you guys found this video insightful, you learned something new, drop in the comments down below, subscribe. And if you want to reach out to Javier, well, his information's on the internet, so you can find them. Javier, thank you so much.
Thank you, Brian.